Hey, we are back. Welcome to Energy Healing Lifestyle Journal, Self-Care Challenge Day 45. We are wrapping up the season already, you guys, but we'll be starting another, right? So I have my journal ready and prepared. Got some notes for today's messages about solar plexus chakra healing, meeting ourselves with love and compassion. So again, self-care being an acronym. Today we look at the letter L for love, right? In my acronym of Best You, yes, I have two, of Best You, we're looking at our self-image. I think sometimes we don't realize how massive our self-image plays a role in our day-to-day, right? So I really want to bring it to our awareness because we want to be aware, assess where we're at, and get into alignment if we're not already, right? So in my journaling today, with that being said, and that kickstart right there, also so when we meet ourselves with love and compassion, that means we're not bringing in the energy of blame, shame, and guilt, right? So when we notice what our patterns are that we repeat, or the cycles, whatever word you choose, cycles we repeat, um, how we tend to identify ourselves, right? So completing that sentence of I am, if I was to describe who I see myself as being, right? Not bringing in the blame, shame, and guilt when there are those moments of, sometimes we call it darkness or ego. I often just call it humanness, because as much as we try to separate from it, or we do blame, shame, and guilt ourselves over choices that we've made, or things that we do, or how we think we are, we have to love that part too. And I don't mean love it like, oh, it's amazing, and put it on a pedestal and just keep it and own it and repeat it anyway, even though I really don't like it, or it's not the best that I feel I could be, or not the best that I want to be. And even though it makes me feel really icky, I'm just going to keep doing it anyway, right? In humanness, we do that, and we don't even realize it oftentimes that we're doing that. But allowing ourselves to see it. So if you recall in my other videos, I talk about the Johari window, right? Our subconscious is a real thing. So there's really those pieces of ourselves, those aspects of ourselves, or those patterns of ourselves that we just don't often see. So again, just allowing it to come into our awareness. We're not forcing it to come into our awareness, but we're also not beating it down when it does, right? Owning it. When I say I'm going to own my stuff, I just mean being accountable. So there are times when I can find that I make, whatever choices and past tense reflection, and you're like, ooh, oh, or that was a dark side of me. Like I know when I felt so depressed and so icky and so dark, and I saw how that was projected out on other people. Like it can be easy to allow that energy of blame, shame, and guilt to come in, right? Like you were a terrible person, and we just start with the mind chatter. However, if I come in gently with that energy of love and compassion, I'm accountable because I see it. I'm not ignoring it. I'm not denying it. I'm not dismissing it or minimizing it. But I'm also not just beating myself down and staying down with it. I'm not grabbing it, keeping it, and saying, I'm just going to repeat those things. I'm going to continue to feel at my lowest, and I'm going to continue to be angry and resentful, and have what I call a sharp tongue, right? Being snappy or angry, mean, whatever it may be. We're allowing it to be there to see it, but then we're offering the space to heal it, to release it. Because there was a reason it came in, right? As icky as it may sound, as harsh as we can be on ourselves when we look at it, there was a reason for it. It was part of our survival skills or our survival techniques. Yeah. But in those moments when we can show up in love and compassion and just see it for what it is, to allow it to heal and release, then we're able to feel lighter. Like literally, you can feel it in your own energy if you really tap in with yourself and feel lighter, which is then more in alignment with that energy of unconditional love of God's source, highest pure spirit, right? So just focusing on that and realizing that, one, there's a reason for it. Two, it's just a pattern or a cycle that might have become very automatic. It doesn't have to define us, who we are as a person. We don't have to use it to complete the sentence of I am, right? What else? I'm checking my journal. I think I covered that part. Got to the reading with my hand motions here. Also, so in this process, when we are allowing things to come up, start separating it. Because again, I've mentioned this before that as humans and those automatic thought patterns, and we do take it in and use it to identify who we are, being able to separate it and put it where it belongs. So remember, if I had said before that if I had diabetes, like we know people who have been diagnosed with diabetes, right? It's a condition, a health condition, but the language becomes the identity of, right? Oh, I am diabetic. Or when we talk, talk about someone else, oh, my mom is diabetic. She's not, she's not the condition, right? I'm not a condition. But yeah, we start to talk that way, and it's almost like we create it and make it part of our identity. I've used an example of smoking before, right? That was a habit that I had. Excuse me, an action I took and a habit that I had. It wasn't who I was, but yet I used that as part of my identity. I am a smoker, right? Well, I'm not now anymore. I'm still the same person. That's just not something I do anymore, right? When we can separate a thought, even a belief, an emotion, but just different aspects that, yes, kind of make up our human experience, but it doesn't truly define or make us who we are. When we can separate that, that's very empowering. That allows us the ability to make changes. For me, anyways, when I would identify things or really take them in and own them, I just assumed I couldn't change anything. I just assumed it's just me and I'm stuck with it, right? No, I'm not. I'm not. Sometimes in the very early stages, when we start to learn that, we get defensive and because we didn't know any different, right? So we defend it like, oh, now you're coming after me and you're blaming me. Remember, no blame, shame, and guilt, right? It's just that empowerment, that empowering piece to say, you know what, I can do something different. I can choose to change my patterns. I can choose to change my thoughts. I can choose to change how I feel about situations, including myself, right? So all of that is part of the process of getting into alignment. And all of that is affected by and continues to affect the energy in our solar plexus chakra. What else? Um, so that's part of our assessment piece, right? Really looking at what comes in, trying to determine, and we don't have to, overthink it, but just determine what's a thought, what's an emotion, what's a pattern, is it a cycle that I repeat? Did I really take this on as who I am? Do I like this aspect of me? Is it something I want to keep? And if it's not, okay, what's a way that I can change it? And remember to change a pattern. One, it takes consistency. Two, it takes time, or you could flip that around and say the other, right? It's time and consistency. But we have to replace it. We don't just get rid of it. We replace it with something else. So just determining or deciding what I'm going to do with that thought process, that emotion differently. So instead of thinking, I'm such a mean person, what can I think instead? And what made me think I was a mean person? I'm going to go in on that just a little bit more too later today. So depending on when you watch this video, September 27th, 2023, I will be live, excuse me, for the 7-day chakra healing challenge, going deeper into the solar plexus chakra and bringing more of this in. So you can catch me live at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or it will be up for the year. You can go anytime, and I'm going to continue every year. So you can go to my channel anytime or on my platform at any time and check out those videos and participate. Healing isn't limited to a 7-day challenge, right? So what else? Let's see. So that alignment piece, again, what action can we take? Remember, you guys, it's not about waving a magic wand and just making a complete change all at once, right? How nice and easy that would be. However, sometimes things take more time. So there's ups and downs and ins and outs, and that's okay. It's part of the process. Again, meeting ourselves with love and compassion, no blame, shame, or guilt, and allowing ourselves that time to go through the process for that change to occur, right? And also, when you're doing your awareness, be aware of the parts of self that you absolutely love and adore, right? Be aware of the parts of self where you have already made changes, where you have gone through and done some healing and clearing in your energy body, where you have just expanded as a human, as in spirit, right? Give yourself the kudos for the successes that you make in your life within yourself. Whether it affects anybody else or not doesn't even matter, but what you see for you. I think oftentimes we dismiss those, and let's not, right? Let's not dismiss those. We can also use those. So if you're really looking at these are the thoughts that really serve me well, note those, keep those. We can use those. So when we're looking for the ones we want to replace, we know what we can replace it with, right? We can repeat it. We're habitual. Repetition helps us change and shift, right? Helps clear out that energy. Do the same with the I ams. If as you just allow yourself to write I am and put whatever comes to mind, because sometimes the subconscious will go ahead and throw us a bone, so to speak, right? Here's your clue, here's a tip for you. So go ahead and take it and write it down, even if you're like, what? No, I don't. Write it down. Don't second guess it. And then when you're all done, just come back and look and go, okay, well, this showed up, right? Which ones do you really like? Which ones feel like they're in alignment with the energy and vibration of unconditional love? Because that's really our moral compass, if you will, right? I know that as humans, we can often get it twisted of what love means and what unconditional love means, right? And when we get it twisted, that's just another human program. It's just another part of our ego self, how we've been taught, whether we weren't taught directly, but it's how we processed our experiences. It's what that belief that we created. Sometimes that needs tweaked, and I get that. So, again, no blame, shame, and guilt. Meet yourself with love and compassion. And it's not the fight back and forth to say, yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. It's a step in the process. Start there. Remember that unconditional love means without blame, shame, and guilt, but also means making a change. So if we know that we are doing something, so I'm not trying to guilt anybody else or blame anybody else or talk poorly on anybody else who smokes cigarettes. This is just my own journey, my own process, this is for me and my example that I'd like to share. There was a time, I was getting to that time where I knew differently, like I knew better than to smoke cigarettes. I knew that there were some health ramifications that come with smoking cigarettes, right? And I had those moments of beating myself up. So in my belief, when I think of God's source, highest pure spirit, unconditional love, that image that I have, when I brought that in and said, okay, so if that image, if that vibration, if that energy was a being, right? And this being came to meet me, would I want to offer it space in this physical body while I'm smoking cigarettes? Like, is that something I would offer that being of unconditional love? Here, you want a cigarette? Right? Like, no. So I really beat myself up in that aspect for a minute. I had to shift it and say, okay, even though that's not in alignment, what's an action step I can take that I'm willing to take, right? Because if I beat myself up, then I just wanted to smoke more. And I just stayed in that cycle and that pattern, or then I went to the avoidance, right? Like there's all kinds of things we do in that resistance when it clicks, when it really hits us deeper, right? So that unconditional love wasn't to continue and repeat the pattern, it was to be aware of it, realize in that assessment that it's not in alignment, and then allowed me to think about, okay, what are some action steps I can take to make that change, right? And then that's what I did. And it took time. It's not like I just said, oh, that's it, done for me, not picking up another cigarette. I sure did. Right? I sure did. But addressing it without the blame, shame, and guilt allowed me to still be successful in that change that I made. So it's been over 2 years now, right, that I've made that change. I've made the change before. 2005, I'd quit smoking. And I made it like a year, give or take. And then when life hit, I didn't have enough coping mechanisms that I was ready and willing to actually use. So this was before my knowledge of Reiki and energy healing. I didn't have enough tools in my toolbox, so to speak, to get me through some really tough, difficult times that I ended up resorting back to the cigarettes, right? To use the cigarettes to help me cope. And then it took years again for me to make the effort again. But so far, and I've had challenges in life, maybe not to that extreme. Darn close though, some really big things. And I didn't resort back to the cigarettes, right? So when we address it differently, when it's not that fight and I'm trying to kill it off and I'm trying to beat it up and I'm just beating myself up or fighting it off or guilting myself into making a change, that doesn't stay consistent. We might be able to do it temporarily, but it doesn't stay consistent, right? Meeting ourselves with love and compassion, being willing to take that one step. So this last time around that I quit smoking, I'm just, again, guys, this is just my example. So please, if you smoke cigarettes, I don't like my family, my kids still smoke cigarettes. I don't guilt them or whatever. That's their journey, not mine, right? Um, but one of the steps that that I started with is just being mindful of it. And then this may sound really weird, but in being more intentional when I did have a cigarette. So check this out. You'll know what I mean if you're also a smoker or if you used to smoke. I noticed in my awareness it came up that those patterns, right, become automatic. Just trying to pay attention to when do I grab the cigarette? When do I want to smoke the cigarette? And then you start to see the patterns of it. When I wake up in the morning, when I have my coffee, when I do this, when I do that, those moments of in between, right? So the drive to work, I know I won't be able to smoke at work, so I'm like trying to get more in before I get there. You have your break and you run out and you're taking your whole break to smoke, whatever it may be. You're tolerating weather that, like, I'm not into cold weather, but I go out in the snow and to smoke my cigarette. But you start to see these patterns. And then you also see that, like, if I was home or if I'm outside or I'm getting involved in something, lighting the cigarette and it would just burn out. It's like, I'm not even smoking it. So why do I light it? Just because it's a habit, right? So really just starting to be more intentional and then planning, like, okay, if I light it, I'm not going to do anything else until I'm finished smoking this cigarette. So then I was able to really get a better picture of when I smoked, how often I smoked, how much of it I smoked, right? And really just document and pay attention. But that was a step I was able to take in the direction without blame, shame, and guilt. I didn't set an expectation that just because I made a decision to quit, that it had to be done within, like a right now moment that I love myself. So any other changes in healing, I think we should give ourselves the same type of love and compassion and patience to do so. Allow yourself to be aware, allow yourself to assess if it's something you want to change or not. And if so, what is just a step? It can be a baby step. Recognizing it as one step, calling it out as another, right? And you might blow that off, but those are massive steps in change. It just reminded me, and let me know in the comments if you're familiar with or if you've heard of like motivational interviewing. It talks about the process of change. I'm glad that I'm going to make a note of that because I feel like that came in for a reason, right? So there's really steps that we take in change. There's like pre-contemplation, test on my memory to see if I remember them. Pre-contemplation, contemplation. No, maybe not. I think there's 5. But yeah, I'll refresh my memory on that and then share that again because I think that's important to note so that we don't again get sucked into the blame, shame, and guilt when we want to make changes for ourselves and then we get impatient and we don't do it as quick as we thought we should, right? All right, I think we did good for today. Checking my journal again. Yeah, I think we did good. Thanks for all who popped in on the live. Come back on the replay. I will see you well, hopefully, I'll see you at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Chakra Healing Challenge. We are on day 3 again, going deeper into the solar plexus chakra. And then I will see you, if not later, tomorrow. What is tomorrow? Thursday. Time. When we talk about the heart chakra and forgiveness and that space for transformation. So I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, whatever time in the world it is in the world for you, whatever time in the world, whatever time it is. You know what I mean. So much love to you guys. See you tomorrow. See you later. Bye.